Well, G4S, which operates HMP Five Wells, has responded to our report. It says, a spokesperson said, the safety of staff and prisoners is our #1 priority and we do not tolerate violence. Managers take swift and robust action when serious incidents do happen. We have sufficient levels of staffing to run a stable, consistent and safe regime. We continue to drive recruitment. The majority of our employees have more than 12 months prison experience, and we have a large group of officers on secondment from other G4S prisons. Oh, they go on. We know there is more to be done and continue to take steps to improve the regime every day. One more. Our dedicated officers work tirelessly to detect, intercept and confiscate contraband through a range of measures. We are committed to supporting and caring for our staff. Luckily, we have the Justice Secretary on with us this morning. What are we going to do about that then?
Well, look, thank you first for having me on. In terms of the points that were raised there, so I was clear that we want to look into them rapidly, so I've given instructions to take place, particularly in respect of equipment. So we've rolled out body-worn videos as part of a £100 million package. And they're extremely important, as I know from speaking to officers, they help to dial down confrontations. Now, if there's suggestions that they're not working, then that's absolutely something that we need to look into, and that's why I've commissioned some work from.
But what about these officers who feel that they're not being protected? Yeah, what more are you going to do?
Well, it's because I've read carefully what came out, and one of the reasons they had a concern was about safety equipment. Now, as I say, we rolled out £100 million worth of safety equipment. That's to do with scanners, body scanners, which indicate whether things have been secreted internally and brought into the prison, but also body-worn videos as well. Now, if there is concerns about those not working, they should be working. They should be repaired.
Are you going to look into this?
Oh, yes. No, I've already given instructions to senior leadership to look into this precise thing as a result of this.
As a result of Jason's piece?
As a result of Jason's piece.
OK. Talk to me about the protesters outside the conference centre here. Are you content with the way the police in Greater Manchester are dealing with them? Because some of the protesters are saying they're being controlled outside Tory conference. I'm sure you've seen them as you've come in from time to time, suggesting terrorism laws are being used by GMP.
Right. Well, I mean, actually, I haven't, because yesterday I was at the opening of the legal year, so I've come in this morning.
Well, trust me, they'll be there when you leave. Trust me.
I'm sure they will. Look, I mean,
they'll let you know they're there.
I'm sure they will. Right. So it's very, very important that powers are used in a way that is proportionate and lawful. And we live in a nation of laws. If there are concerns that the laws are not being appropriately implemented, then there are remedies for individuals in the normal way through the court. So plainly, every case has to be treated on its merits. I would want to ensure that the police use the powers available to them, but do so within the law. That's how we operate as a country, and that's how we will continue to.
OK. Talk to me about one of the subjects that you want to discuss with us today, and that, of course, is not only about 1 in 10 prisons, you know, and the challenges that they face, but also you're talking about monsters and new move, meaning that it will only apply to those already caught, putting more monsters away for life. I'm not really sure that I understand what's going on here.
There are two things.
Whole life orders.
Precisely.
Extension of.
Exactly. You've got it in one. So whole life orders, so just so to be clear, what that means is that when the judge, in respect of a murder, says, right, you get a life sentence. Now, for some, he can or she can impose a whole life order. In other words, life should mean life. That person should never be released from prison. And there are people like, for example, Wayne Couzens and the Sarah Everard case that you recall, for whom life means life. We think that where the murder involves sexual or sadistic conduct, in other words, rape followed by murder, for example, that should be the outcome. In other words, that person shouldn't be able to get parole, shouldn't be able to get out, and should spend the rest of their days in custody. And that's why we've changed the law to ensure that that is now the option. That is the default option, unless, of course, there are exceptional circumstances. But that effectively is what it will mean. And we think that's important so that the poor families who have to pick up the pieces after these atrocious crimes can get a measure of comfort that true justice has been served.
OK, but the line that I underlined here, and this is what I wanted to ask you about, was putting more monsters away for life. Is that really the correct terminology from a government minister?
Well, look, I mean, if you think of someone like Wayne Couzens, so this is somebody who impersonated, well, he was a police officer, you know. He effectively held himself out as a police officer in order to abduct someone.
Is he a monster?
Yes, I think he is. I think that's an entirely legitimate approach to take. I mean, he has shattered the lives of that family.
Should we call human beings monsters?
I think when you have betrayed trust, you've robbed innocence, you've shattered lives, you mean that there are members of that poor woman's family who will never be able to sleep properly at night, never be able to get on with their lives because somebody has arrogated to themselves the power to just simply destroy their existence.
There's nothing more we can do about him.
But there are certain number of cases, a small number of cases, relatively speaking, where the crime is so appalling, it is so egregious, that we have to ensure that for the British people to have confidence in the criminal justice system, to ensure that justice is truly being done, that should be the appropriate penalty. And look, let's be clear, there are other cases when parole is absolutely the appropriate, as it were, incentive to present towards individuals to ensure that they behave properly, that they rehabilitate themselves in custody, so that is a possibility. If there are some when it shouldn't be appropriate.
Another couple of topics, if I may. European Court of Human Rights. Should we continue to be a member?
Well, look, the position of the British government is very clear that we intend to remain members of the European Court of Human Rights. And in the context of Rwanda...
The Secretary has a different view?
Well, no, I don't think she does. I mean, I think on the issue of Rwanda, what is really important point to get across, if I may, is that whether you're looking at the High Court in respect to this Rwanda litigation or indeed the Court of Appeal, everyone has agreed that the principle of offshoring, in other words, the principle of Rwanda, is not in and of itself in conflict with our international legal obligations. And so whilst, of course, there remains litigation before the Supreme Court, and we need to allow that to take its course, we are confident that we can fulfil this really important policy consistent with our international legal obligations. OK,
I'm a proud Northerner. Why will you not allow me to get here quicker to see my sister from London on HS2?
Well, look, the decision about HS2, as you know, is uniquely one for the Prime Minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Why will he not let me?
Well, as I say, that's a matter for him, and he'll be, no doubt, giving an indication on that. What I do think is important as a proud Northerner, you will know, I hope, that since 2010 there has been £32 billion worth of investment into transport infrastructure in the north, and only at the beginning of this conference...
Talking about the HS2 specifically, Secretary of State, if I may, and we've got a map, I'm not sure if we can show it or not. Most of this area of the northwest votes Labour. Has that got anything to do with it?
No, look. This government is absolutely committed to doing what is right by the people of this nation, where they are from Arbroath in Scotland, or whether they're from Truro in Cornwall.
Go ahead with HS2,
as I say,
all the way up to Manchester.
If I can just... When I work with the Prime Minister, and I work particularly with him in respect of working on the Illegal Migration Act, so the Rwanda legislation, I sit opposite him in the Cabinet room, and he gets absolutely into the detail. He follows the evidence coolly, calmly, without emotion. And I know that's exactly what he's doing now. And that's what you've got to do. Work on the basis of the evidence, follow each line of inquiry, and that's what he will do, and he'll make a full and fair decision in the interest of the British people.
And do you think as part of that he'll be looking into why I think, I'm just looking at my notes, it's something like 8 times more expensive to build rail infrastructure here in the UK than it is in Europe?
Well, look, as the Chancellor has said...
How can that be?
Well, as the Chancellor has said, it is concerning about the extent to which some of these projects have expanded in cost. That is entirely appropriate to look at those issues. Now, look, there are certain things that we do extremely affordably and so on, but of course he wants to look at the issue of why the cost has increased. But the central point I wanted to make is he will act not on the basis of emotion, but he will act on the basis of the evidence. He will take the long-term decisions in the interest of this country, of the interest of all people. You talked about people in the north, but it'll be people in the southwest, where I'm from, or indeed the northeast of Scotland. Those are the interests of the people he'll have.
Why doesn't he bite the bullet? Everybody knows what he's going to say, and instead it's death by 1,000 cuts. Come on.
No, look, you have to take these decisions calmly on the basis of the evidence in the right order. But you've already taken
the decision. Everyone knows the decision has been made. Just announce it and get on with it.
No, I don't think that is the case.
Even the Mayor of Greater Manchester has talked about it.
I don't think it is.
The Mayor of London's talked about it. The Mayor of West Yorkshire's talked about it.
Well, they can talk about it, but it's the Prime Minister who decides it.
Yeah,
and
he's
that's
already
the point.
decided, hasn't he?
Well, no. Well, listen, I'm the Justice Secretary. I deal with the things that are in my lane. Well, this is a matter for the Prime Minister and the Chancellor. No, I don't. This is a matter for the Prime Minister, Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Transport Secretary. All I can tell you is, as I say, I sit opposite this guy, and I have never met anyone who is more committed to following the evidence. When I go into these meetings, I tell you, the best...
I wonder how many friends he's got in the northwest.
You have officials, you have all these people. The best brief person in the room is the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He always is. And that's what gives me confidence that he will make sensible, calm decisions. Why is it caught up on him so quickly,
then? I mean, because 6 months ago, we weren't discussing whether or not we should get rid of HS2. What's happened?
As I say, look, I don't want to be boring, but these are matters that are for him.
You're never boring, Justice Secretary.
I'm sure that's not true, but he certainly will follow the evidence. And of course, you have a party conference, that's in the diary. Other issues bubble along at the same time, and it may be that it's come to a head at the same time. But all I can say is that I have total confidence in the Prime Minister, that he will consider it carefully, and he will make sure that every penny piece that is spent on infrastructure in this country, I pause to note the £32 billion that has gone on infrastructure in the north on transport, but every penny piece will be served in the national interest to get the biggest bang for our buck.
And that means not having HS2 all the way to Manchester.
Well, we haven't.
It does.
We haven't.
It does.
We
I
haven't
don't know why you guys just can't tell us.
We have to have a decision
Literally,
from the
people
Prime Minister.
are shouting at the telly this morning.
I'm sure they are. But look, it's really important to hear from the Prime Minister. He'll make that decision.
Well, we'll hear from him later on today, won't we? So let's see what he says. It's always a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you for having me.